All right, we're live. Welcome in. Utah just got done with their game against Florida. As if you can see in the thumbnail and right here, they won 24 to 11. So Tanner, you watched the game. I watched the game just from home. We were texting a little bit about it. Tell me what your thoughts are about the game. I
Yeah,
can pull up the
so
stats as well if you want to refer to anything. And
so going into it, um, I saw the spread drop as low as 4.5 for Utah, and then climb up to around 5. And I think it was just all that unknown of what's this team going to look like without Rising. Um, and I think they showed tonight. Um, you got to remember this is a team that brought back 85% of its offensive production from last year. We know they've
yeah,
got weapons. It was just that question of can a new quarterback come in and get the job done? And the first, the first play he throws a dime into double coverage,
yeah, I'm gonna show that here.
Yeah,
I got that pulled
given
up.
given Florida's defense showed us that they weren't anything to write home about later in the game, it would make sense why, this went for so many yards. But
Yeah, just
it's
leading the
week
caps
one.
there.
It's week one, so I'm not gonna tell them they're going to the national championship, but a Big 12 championship, not a Big 12, Pac-12 championship in the horizon. I think it's there.
Yeah, I was super impressed with how the two quarterbacks came out. I mean, they played say out of the cat. But they both played and they both had really distinct styles. Like you saw in that touchdown pass, Bryson Barnes kind of slinging it, 159 yards, only 12 completions, and then that touchdown pass. And then Nate Johnson, the other quarterback, who's more of kind of that running threat, he only threw for 6 yards and had a near interception. He had a fumble, so a little bit more loose. But you mentioned his run over text. What impressed you about that?
Yeah, so they were showing his highlight on a treadmill. He was running at like 22 miles per hour. Um, and we just saw that little bit of explosiveness right there, right? He made it look so easy. He gives a little juke and he's into the end zone. Now, given his work with his hands wasn't as great tonight, he had the fumble, but he also had one that he almost fumbled before that. Timing was a little off, but let's give it to him. The guy's a freshman. Um,
Yeah, and here's that run, and we'll play it on the screen while you keep going.
and then he hits him, boom, and he's
Yeah,
turning it upfield. And
yeah, he got him in the end zone.
I mean, should Cam Rising be worried about his job? Absolutely not. Like you said, there's a reason he only threw for 6 yards. I bet they're still trying to work on probably his passing. His rushing's there, but um, I think they'll probably polish him up. Cam Rising will come back, and it's Cam Rising. Like they said, he's heart and soul of Utah football. But I mean, Nate Johnson for a debut, wow, to have him as a weapon in the background.
Yeah, and here's what I wonder is you have capable backups. I wonder if they bring in Nate Johnson still throughout the season to maybe run some of those more gadget trick plays. Maybe bring him in if there's a third and four, third and five. You have that kind of dual threat running quarterback. I could see him coming into games and them kind of getting him some reps because I think he's kind of the future long term for
Yeah,
Utah.
I was watching it with some guys that are Utah fans, and I made a reference to possibly using him like a Taysom Hill, uh, like Drew Brees and Taysom Hill
Yeah,
kind of duo with Cam Rising, and they quickly said, "Not the same, not the same. Don't
yeah,
associate us with Taysom Hill." But I, not to the extent that Taysom Hill does, but
yeah.
yeah, throwing him in there to rush for some yards, take some pressure off Cam, especially coming back from an injury. I think, and I think Utah may have showed that kind of in what they may be doing with their game plan, switching from Barnes to Johnson in that game. That might have been a preview for what we may see with Cam and and Johnson. So
Yeah, I definitely agree. And then like as far as, you know, the offense goes, I came here to the stats and the game didn't feel very close throughout the entire time. But I was surprised with how many yards, Florida put up. 333 passing yards for Graham Mertz, and he was a Wisconsin quarterback the past couple seasons. And He didn't really throw for a lot of yards and have these big games. I mean, he made a lot of mistakes, threw a lot of interceptions last year, but 333 yards. And I think the Utah defense was really good, but I think their secondary struggled a little bit. They were relying a lot on that pass rush to get pressure, but if they didn't get the rush, then there was some open guys down the field. What
Yeah,
do you
you
think
want
about the
to.
defense?
Yeah, so we saw Florida with some throws up the middle that seemed to kind of put Utah on their heels. Talk about their run defense. If you pull up that stat, uh, yards per rush for Florida, point 0.6.
Yeah.
They were
I
not
mean,
getting it done in the running
so
department tonight.
this negative 29 has a lot to do with the sacks. I think Utah had 4 sacks, felt like 10, but yeah, zero point 0.6 per rush. I mean, even the starting running back here, 3.6. They just couldn't get it going on the ground, and they didn't really stick with it throughout the game. I mean, he threw 44 passes, so
Yeah,
they kind
they
of
were
went away
going
from the run.
they were going to the air because in the beginning it looked like Utah just even they just were dialed in on that kind of on that offensive line, um, but clean things up with the secondary and I think
Yeah,
you're
I
gonna see
think
some stuff.
I think they'll figure it out. There, I think their defense is kind of holding together. Especially that defensive line is just they're nasty. Run defense is great on the line. Pass rush is great. They were eighth in the nation in sacks last year, and that's probably going to be the same case for this year as well. And let's see, looking at stacks, where did I see it? Yeah, here. So five. It looks like they actually have 5 sacks. So that's uh that's something we don't see from BYU a lot.
No,
So
no pressure to the quarterback.
no, but I mean this game I think could have been closer for Florida. There's two things that I wanted to point out. Penalties.
Oh yeah,
They had 9, but they weren't just like little penalties. It was like a false start on a 4th and 1 in the red zone that just kind of killed the momentum. They couldn't get in the end zone when they needed to. They got down within 30 yards, 20 yards a few times, but they just couldn't convert, and those penalties kind of killed them.
and a real momentum killer is that two number threes after
Yeah.
you get a
Oh
stop
yeah. I mean
and then you have
that's 7 point swing right there at least because Utah went down and scored, and that's when Nate Johnson had that run. So just having two threes on the field, you give Utah the ball back, and that was just clueless.
really both teams seem to struggle on I'm looking at third down
Yeah.
efficiency for both teams.
Yeah.
You know,
Right here.
Florida went 1 for 13 and Utah went 3 for 13. And just watching the game, this was not a Utah team playing at the ability that we've seen them in the past. It's week 1.
Yeah, especially
Um,
offensively. I think
yeah.
they're good with the defense, but I think offense has to tighten some things up, and maybe
So
Cam Rising coming back is going to help.
yeah, and I'd be worried if I was a team that had to play Utah this year. You know, they take on Baylor, which Baylor's going to be it's going to be a tough game for them. But if Baylor gets Utah at their best from what we've seen tonight, firing on all cylinders, you could see Whittingham getting mad towards the end of the game. He wanted it to be a little more crisp.
Yep.
If he takes this week, gets them really kind of tuned up, we could see a totally different Utah team that doesn't take off the brakes once next game.
Yeah, and they've got one game under their belt, so I think that's going to help them a lot. And I believe there's a chance Cam Rising can be back next week, but even if he's not back, I mean, they prove they can move the ball and and get the offense going, but the defense is going to kind of hold them together. Yeah, that third down. I mean, Florida got a couple fourth down uh, conversions late to kind of get into the game, but Utah, what do you think about that decision to kick the field goal at the end that we I thought they made it at first, but then they missed and they gave Florida good field position. Do you think that was the right decision or?
Um, those are always tricky because if it goes through, everyone's, you know, it nonchalantly jogs off the field. Everyone in the stand says, okay, yeah, we got 3 points. But yeah, it can flip it so quick, right? Utah's defense was able to hold its own with that field position, but that is something in the future going forward Whittingham likes to be aggressive. We know that from the past, but we've seen it where that can actually bite teams in the butt. And so, and I think that's a week one. And I don't even see it as a mistake. Whittingham, if you're a coach looking at this game, he had a lot of trust in his guys. Try to kick that field goal. If not, I think he knew he's not going to let Florida back into this game. His guys have enough discipline, enough kind of time under their belt that in or not, it wasn't going to kill the momentum too much. So
Yeah, and speaking about the kicker, I mean, I don't disagree with the decision. I think he wasn't worried about the lead at that point. But if I go, I don't want this scoring summary. He had hit a 51-yarder earlier in the game, and so this was like I think a 55-yarder, and so Whittingham, I probably thought he was going to make that. Maybe give him some confidence going forward into the season, and I even thought that was super close. That's a pretty good kick. I wouldn't be too disappointed in how it turned out.
no, definitely not. You could see it on his face. Yeah, he thought he had it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, keep your confidence up in the kicker.
And their punter, man, it's like another.
Yeah,
He was booming it.
dropping
That
some
was
dimes
crazy.
right there.
Yeah, and that it's kind of silly, like talking about the punting game, but it can make a big difference. And they had him pinned back there a couple times. They even got
Absolutely.
they got that interception back in that tipped ball, and that put him in
Yeah.
a great spot. So it was
Yeah,
just like those
definitely.
big plays for Utah that really had him win this game. That big 70-yard touchdown pass at the start. That interception was huge. The penalty on Florida for the two number threes. All those just like really were in Utah's favor.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, week one, but for Florida, you got to really, I don't,
I mean, they looked bad most of the games. They looked
and,
bad. So the question is like, is Florida that bad or is Utah that good? And it's hard to tell after just
and,
one
and
week.
I think I'm leaning more towards Florida is not as, they're not ranked, but
No.
I think there was kind of some I've heard some stuff about Napier and how people in Florida expect stuff. They expect to try to get Florida to continue to rise, become a great team again. He's got to be feeling some pressure. It's hard to win in Rice Eccles, but you're playing a team that has their backup. And then if you look at this game as Utah's trying out a two different quarterback kind of flip flop, yeah, you got to figure something out. This is a game that at least you'd want to see a little closer, knowing it's a backup quarterback. But it's just seemed like they didn't, even on drives where they would get a convert on a fourth down or anything. There just wasn't a big spark. They kept getting up after big ones and trying to get hype, but it just something lacking, something missing.
Yeah, the only time there was a sliver of like hope for Florida was kind of towards the end of the game, this touchdown here, which that was a nasty grab.
Yeah.
Nobody knew how to react.
No.
But he just goes up there and I think they'll show a closer angle. Yeah, he just one hands it.
Defender looking back.
Yeah. So that was the only time I felt like, okay, if they can get a stop quick, maybe they can get in this. And they were showing them, I don't know if you saw the oxygen cans.
Yeah.
That's something you don't think about. We're from Utah, so we're used to the elevation, but I guess it is really a factor for these teams that come from like sea level.
Yeah.
They always talk about that, but I guess you don't really know it until you're feeling it like them.
Yeah. It's interesting.
But then one last compliment for a Florida player, Ricky Pearsall, number one for them. He was kind of the only one really doing anything. Maybe 8 catches. I could see him being in the NFL. He impressed me.
Yeah.
He was kind of carrying them on the wide receiving side.
Yeah, and then talk about on Utah. I'd love to see more of that tight end. What's his name? The like Australian guy that's a tank.
Is it Mikey
Uh,
Matthews? No.
no. It's I think it's his name starts with a Y. His last name Yasmin or something.
Yeah,
Thomas.
okay.
Yeah, guy's a tank.
Yeah.
If they can
What is
bring
he?
him,
6'5", 251.
oh yeah, and they were saying he never played football and then was a recruit they brought over, because they lost their other tight end Kincaid to
Yeah,
the
he was a first
NFL, and
round pick.
so
He went to Buffalo.
yeah, so if they can get this guy to step up, he's big target. So
And he had 6 touchdowns last year and
yeah,
had some good games like against USC, 81 yards, long touchdown. But yeah, I think Utah's going to be a good team. Let's see if we can look at next week. They play Baylor.
yeah,
That's at Baylor at 10 a.m. No line on this game yet, but it looks like Utah, according to this, 58%.
yeah. That'll be interesting. Things we got to look at is got to look into Baylor. Are they going to pass more, throw more, or run more? Because Utah tonight, their run defense, that may give some teams some trouble. So
Yeah, Baylor is typically a build on the run kind of offense. Jeff Grimes, former BYU offensive coordinator, offense coordinator there now, and that's kind of his philosophy is build the run first. But I don't know if that's going to work. We saw it when he was with BYU as the offensive coordinator. If that run didn't work, it's it was tough to get the offense going. But it's if they can get 100+ rushing yards, they might have a chance.
yeah,
150 is kind of the mark. If Baylor can get 150 rushing yards, they're probably going to be in that game, possibly
yeah,
even a win.
definitely.
Yeah, let's recap. Any last points before we end the stream?
No, I think it's a Utah team to watch out for. Um, so we'll see. I think Baylor will be that test, and it's tough having it at your second game. But I think this will be a fun team to watch as they square off against Baylor, Oregon State, Oregon, and then USC.
Yeah, this
These
will
are
be
some
tough.
big games. Yeah,
I'm going to this game against Cal, but USC, Oregon, and then Washington. That's not
Washington.
easy. Colorado, that's kind of like who they've established as the Pac-12 rival.
Okay.
We'll see if they're any good this year. We'll see on Saturday. So, yeah, it's great to have college football back.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Great time of year.
Probably, we'll probably make sure to subscribe because we'll be doing more of these, and we'll probably have some more live streams coming up, maybe on Saturday, maybe a halftime show or something. Just we'll see what's going
Yeah.
on, but it should be fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks for
Thank you,
watching.
Brandon.